Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Cries from the Lost Island by Kathleen O'Neill Gear. Narrated by Charlie Thurston. Chapter 1. By the time I was 13, I knew that the girl of my dreams was not what anyone would call a sane child. My first hint came on a bright autumn afternoon when Cleopatra Mallawi was helping me rake up mountains of fallen maple leaves from our front yard in Georgetown, Colorado. At around 2 o'clock, Cleo took a break to lean on her rake and stare up at the mountain peaks visible through the branches that spread across the blue sky. Straight, coal-black hair hung to her shoulders.
"Look, Halloran, a demon."
My full name is Halloran Justin Stevens, but pretty much everyone except Cleo calls me Hal. After I'd combed blonde hair away from my blue eyes, I glanced around the leaf-filled yard. I'd always been overweight, and exertion really gets to me. My hooked nose was dripping sweat down the front of my denim shirt, so I wiped it on my sleeve. All I saw was another 2 hours of work. "I don't see anything."
"Oh."
She sounded disappointed.
"That's okay."
She quietly returned to raking leaves, but I couldn't take my eyes off the place near the maple where she'd been looking. After a couple of minutes of examining every pile of leaves for hidden claws or fangs, I shrugged and started raking again. Cleo was definitely the most interesting person in Georgetown. She'd been born in Macedonia, but grew up in Egypt, was fluent in 9 languages, and had been orphaned during the revolution that rocked Egypt a few years before. She'd studied ancient Egyptian history, claimed she'd been Queen Cleopatra in a former life, and said she'd personally met a variety of Egyptian gods and demons. Not only that, Cleo had supposedly shot a demon with her father's pistol at the age of 10. Right after her parents' deaths, the demons had invaded her home, wearing gas masks, and she'd barely escaped with her life. Hypnotized by the idea that a demon might be standing there, a demon only Cleo could see, I stopped raking and asked, "Which demon?" "I've won the Colorado Classics Award 3 times, which is the state record. It's an award for young ancient history scholars, so I take this stuff seriously." Cleo turned toward the maple.
"A huge one, with the head of a crocodile, the front legs of a lion, and the hind quarters of a hippopotamus. She is known as Ammut, the Devourer of the damned. Today she has turquoise skin. She and her earthly priests have kept me from reaching the Island of the Two Flames for over 2,000 years. The Island of the Two Flames was one version of the ancient Egyptian land of the dead. There were several versions. After all, Ptolemaic Egyptians were way more creative than modern people. "Where do you see her exactly? Where's she standing?" As though the famed demon from the Egyptian Book of the Dead was right there, only a few feet away, dread filled Cleo's eyes. "She's leaning against the maple with her arms crossed. Don't you see her at all, Halloran? Not even her shadow?"
I looked. No.
"Well, she sees you. She's watching you."
Naturally, my blood had turned to ice. You have to understand, I'm a true fear fanatic. I'm the happiest when I'm scared to the point of filling my Levi's, which was one of the reasons I found Cleo so fascinating. Every time she talked about the demons that chased her, I had spectacular nightmares where I found myself running headlong down the streets of ancient Alexandria with giant lion-headed beasts bounding after me. The honking of horns on the Colorado street outside would metamorphose into court trumpets. The traffic on the interstate became the roar of cheering crowds, and the shadows of tree branches cast upon my bedroom wall by the moonlight became gnarly demonic arms reaching out for me. Cool stuff. Even more wonderful for my overactive adolescent imagination were the stories she told about plucking the lyre of Orpheus with her own hands, or traveling to Sparta to smooth her fingers over the egg from which Helen of Troy had hatched. Since I was a voracious reader of historical tomes and considered myself to be the future world expert on ancient Rome and Egypt, being around Cleo was as exotic as seeing an alien spaceship land on the football field at Georgetown High. I plagued her to tell me stories about her life, which she did in a quiet, dignified voice, only slightly accented. Such stunning wonders filled her long-gone world that I felt this modern age was but a pale reflection, tepid and boring beyond endurance. Which is probably why I play so many ancient world video games. How she'd gotten to Georgetown was mostly a mystery, though I knew she'd come to live with her aunt and uncle. Apparently her aunt was the only family she had left in the world. On the fateful day that Aunt Sophia had learned Cleo survived the riots, and her parents were dead, she'd immediately flown to Egypt to pick Cleo up and bring her back to America. Cleo's uncle, Dr. James Moriarty, taught Egyptian archaeology at Colorado State University in Fort Collins during the school year. But in the summers, he excavated sites abroad. That's where he'd met Cleo's Aunt Sophia, a woman 20 years his junior, digging in Egypt. By the time I was 16, I was 5'9", weighed 210, and was desperately in love with Cleo. We were inseparable. Often we would lie together on the floor of my bedroom, as we were on this sunny May afternoon, studying maps of Ptolemaic Egypt and role-playing. She was my Cleopatra, and I was her Marcus Antonius. The most famous lovers in history, their doomed romance was brilliant and passionate, and far more tragic than Romeo and Juliet, because Cleopatra and Antonius were not theatrical inventions. They had lived, and each had died by his or her own hand in 30 BC. Their rulership of ancient Egypt and their battle against Octavian was also one of the most glorious war stories of all time. The fact that Cleopatra and Antonius had suffered a spectacular defeat made them even more interesting to me, especially Cleopatra. A queen at 18, for 22 years she ruled the last great Egyptian empire, lost it once, regained it, and finally, heartbroken and alone, she lost everything. "Who's that?" I tapped the image. The map was ringed with artistic sketches of notable people, most of whom I recognized, but not this one. Cleo tilted her head to study the figure.
"That's Cicero. He was a member of the Roman Senate, and a detestable man." She added, "Antonius despised him as much as I did. He called Cicero the greatest boaster alive."
In the process of becoming scrupulous intellectuals, we insisted upon historical accuracy, so we refused to say things like Mark Antony or Beirut. It was Marcus Antonius and Berytus. We read aloud the works of Lucan, Plutarch, Appian, Josephus, and Dio, and discovered that none of those ancient authors could be trusted. In fact, when it came to the truth about the lives of Cleopatra and Antonius, there was obviously a secret historical conspiracy to destroy the evidence. Not one authoritative painting or sculpture of Cleopatra existed. Even Cicero's letters from 44 BC, when Julius Caesar and Cleopatra had been together in Rome, were mysteriously missing. Dellius, who'd betrayed Antonius and Cleopatra at the Battle of Actium in 31 BC, had also written a chronicle, but it too had vanished. And though Appian had promised to tell more about Cleopatra and Caesar in his vast 4-volume history of Egypt, none of those books existed today. While Cleo could not say why, because she died before those things had happened, I concluded that Octavian had purposely purged the archives of all references to his dead enemies. He would later become known as the legendary Augustus Caesar, first emperor of Rome. In fact, Octavian's own account of the Battle of Actium, where he defeated Antonius and Cleopatra, left out all references to them. To make matters worse, after their deaths, Octavian convinced the Roman Senate to issue a decree that the names Marcus and Antonius could never again be conjoined. It made perfect sense that the new Roman emperor would leave no stone unturned when it came to conquering his enemies, including erasing their very existences. Therefore, in the absence of facts, I turned to Cleo for information, and sat rapt, listening to her extol the history she had supposedly lived. It was all mythic, larger than life, and utterly amazing. I so longed to step into her memories that I only felt truly alive when her soft, lilting voice was guiding me into the past to walk the streets of Alexandria, a vision of gleaming white marble with the famed lighthouse soaring 400 feet above the ocean waves in the distance. Someday, we're going to Egypt together. To prepare me, she's been teaching me Egyptian, as well as ancient Greek and Latin. And she's promised to show me where Antonius is buried. That's really important because no one knows where either of them is buried. Their true graves have never been found. I rolled to my side and propped my head on my hand. But Cicero was one of the greatest orators in history. Cleo reached out to gently touch my cheek and stare into my eyes. Her smile melted my heart.
He was, Hal. That's what made him so dangerous. People listened to him.
People like Octavian?
I knew no one of that name.
She lowered her hand and examined the bust of young Octavian on the map. Her delicate black brows drew together.
After the death of my lover, Julius Caesar, the man you call Octavian was called Gaius Julius Caesar, because Julius had adopted him in his will. I knew him as Little Gaius.
Venom filled her voice. I protested, but all my history books call him Octavian.
Yes, they're wrong.
It was a calm statement of fact. Determined to prove her wrong, I got up and went to my bookshelf to pull down my encyclopedia, whereupon I discovered she was right. Octavian came from his name, Gaius Julius Caesar Octavianus. Octavian was actually... There was a sharp knock on my closed door. "Hal, I need to speak to you," my father called. "Just a minute, Dad." My parents were experts at keeping me and Cleo apart. They constantly pushed me to date other girls, but I refused. Who needed to date when the reincarnated Queen of Egypt was in my bedroom staring at me with adoring green eyes? Not only that, I had dirty blonde hair, was overweight, and had a hooked nose that resembled an oversized eagle's beak. Plus, I was completely incapable of small talk. I didn't know the latest movies, music, or celebrities, and I routinely bored girls to tears talking about dead people they'd never heard of. Not exactly the kind of boy that girls line up to date. Quietly, Cleo said,
"Your father wants me to leave, Hal. I'll be waiting on our bench. Come soon?"
"See you in 15. Our bench was in front of the local Starbucks. "Excuse me," my father said as he rudely shoved open my door. "Cleo, I'm sorry, but it's time for you to leave. Hal has other obligations today." I said, "What?" Cleo grabbed her canvas shoulder bag and hurried toward him, politely saying,
"I had a lovely time today, Mr. Stevens. Thank you for letting me come over. Goodbye."
She veered wide around my father, and her hurt expression broke my heart. I glared at him. "What is it, Dad?" Despite the fact that it was a weekend, my father was dressed in a starched white shirt and tan trousers, his blonde hair greased and combed with the precision of a Greek statue. He was a high school English teacher and looked it. "Please come into the kitchen, son. We need to talk." He turned and disappeared. I didn't follow him because I was seething. 10 minutes later, when I finally deigned to enter the kitchen, I found my father sitting erect at the table with his hands folded neatly in his lap. Trim and athletic, he had an annoyed look on his face. In clipped tones, he said, "You are aware, I assume, that there's no such thing as former lives."
"Really? How do you know?"
"Don't use that tone with me, Hal. I'm on your side, but we need to have a realistic conversation about Cleo. I know you like her."
"I love her, Dad."
He gave me one of those narrow-eyed looks. "Look, hands down, you are the best thing that's ever happened to Cleo. And we want her to get well, but she is not mentally stable. It worries us that you spend every free moment with her." "I'm fine, Dad. Now I gotta go. I got plans." I started for the front door. "Come back here. Please sit down," he asked. "Let me finish." "I promised Roberto I'd be at his house at 3. He has the second edition of The Ghost of Cleopatra, where the ghost follows you through the whole video game, and I've only played it once so far. I'm going to be late." "Sit." He stabbed a finger at the chair beside him, and his blonde eyebrows plunged down over a slightly hooked nose. I walked back and slumped into the chair. "What is it?" Leaning toward me, he held out a hand as though to calm me down. "Hal, do you realize that Cleo's mental illness is one of the reasons you are ostracized at school? Isn't it bad enough that you're the smart kid? No wonder nobody wants to be your friend." "I have friends." "Who?"
"Roberto."
"Roberto the biker witch is completely pathetic and probably just as mentally unstable as Cleo. Do you really want to fit into that group?"
"Yeah, I do."
Dad ground his teeth for a couple of seconds. "Okay, look. Your mother says that Cleo feeds your unnatural obsession with ancient cultures. You eat, sleep, and breathe ancient Rome and Egypt. That's all you talk about. You don't even go to the movies or try out for sports or—"
"I thought you detested sports when you were in high school."
"I did." Dad's mouth pressed into a tight white line. "But at least I tried out for football and basket."
"Does my unnatural obsession embarrass you? Is that the problem?"
Dad propped his elbows on the table and massaged his temples. "No, son. I love you, and I'm proud of you for being a scholar of the ancient world. But you need some time away from Cleo. You don't realize the depths of her illness.
She's the best thing that's ever happened to me, Dad."
He took a breath as though girding himself for my response. "I know you believe that, Hal. Your mother and I have been talking about this for weeks. For your own good, we've decided to ban Cleo from visiting here for 1 week, just to give you time to—" I lurched to my feet.
"You can't do that. I love her."
"Listen, Hal. You do not really know Cleo." He was speaking in slow, precise words, as though explaining to a 10-year-old. "She has real problems. Under the right circumstances, your mother thinks she could even be dangerous. I mean it."
"I don't care. I love her, and she's the best historian I know."
Dad sagged back against his chair and gave me a pained look. "I don't get it. Why can't you find any good friends? I think you refuse to associate with quality people because you like being an outcast."
"Nobody likes being an outcast, Dad. It's awful."
Dad squeezed his eyes closed for a long moment, and when he opened them, he said, "Hal, I'm trying to help you. I don't want you to have to go through what I went through. Believe me, I know what it's like to be the smartest kid in school. When I was your age—"
"No, you don't. You have no idea what it feels to be chased down the hallways with people throwing things at you, and all the girls cheering for the bad guys to kill you."
"Stop exaggerating. That's never happened. You're just trying to—"
"You're right. I'm a liar."
"Now, son, I never said—" He continued, but I blocked his voice and thought about Cleo. A tiny part of me reluctantly suspected Dad was right. Cleo was not mentally stable. My mom, a psychiatrist, had treated Cleo right after she came to America. And while Mom was adamant about doctor-patient confidentiality, I remember her saying once that Cleo's memories of ancient Egypt were really longings for a better Egypt, a homeland she still missed. And the demons that filled Cleo's waking nightmares were actually fanciful representations of the men in crisp uniforms, wearing gas masks, who had destroyed her world 6 years ago. While I was gritting my teeth, my phone chimed in my pocket. I pulled it out and read Cleo's text.
"Are you okay? Please come soon."
She always signed off with the Greek word "yenisti," which meant "let it be done." Much to my father's dismay, I texted back, "There in 5." His mouth puckered like he'd just bitten into a sour lemon. "Was that her? Was that Cleo?" "No, it was Roberto. I'm late. He wants to know if I'm still coming." "Give me your phone. I want to see the number." He stuck out his hand. "No way. It's none of your business." "As long as you are under the age of 18, you're still a child, and it is my business. Now please, give me your phone." Thrusting his hand closer to me, he snapped his fingers. "Right now." I stuffed the phone in my shirt pocket and threw down the proverbial gauntlet. "You'll just have to beat it out of me when I get home, I guess. I'm leaving, Dad. I'll be at Roberto's." With that, I shoved out of the chair and started for the door. "Hal, wait." Dad's stern expression transformed into serious worry. "Are kids really chasing you down the halls at school? You didn't get beat up again, did you? Is that why you're so surly today?" Unfortunately, I did get beat up a lot. Nobody liked me much, which meant they enjoyed ganging up on me. Just last week, my obsession with history became an issue when my archenemy Alexander the Gross got me in a headlock at lunch. Alex was studying demonology with the local wacko cult in Denver. While he wrung my neck, he announced to the other boys at the table that I was the reincarnated Julius Caesar, and he needed 3 of my pubic hairs to use in a magical warding-off ceremony against some of the Satanists in San Francisco who were psychically attacking him. 2 football players jumped on me to hold me down. What a fight that was. For 5 endless minutes, I got the holy crap knocked out of me while I fought to keep my pants on. There was no question in my mind but that if I lost the fight, the nickname Pubic Hair Hal would be all over the internet before I could escape the cafeteria. When I finally knew I was doomed, I screamed, "Karnak! Karnak!" at the top of my lungs. Only 2 people in the world know my secret emergency code. Fortunately, my best friend Roberto was standing in the food line when he heard it. Roberto came crashing through the crowd with something in his hand, yelling, "Out of the way! Out of the way! Corpse powder!" When he blew the red powder from his hand into the Gross's face, Alex shrieked and ran off crying. Turned out to be chili powder, but... "Did you hear me, son? I asked if you'd been fighting at school." "Nothing major, Dad. Now please, I just want to go over to Roberto's. I'm late, okay?" "No, it's not okay. You're grounded for today. When your mother gets home, maybe she can explain to you why you can't spend all your time." Stamping to the front door, I threw it open and slammed it closed behind me with enough force to shake the house, and then I ran hard for the street before he could get outside. I only glanced over my shoulder when I was far enough away that I knew he wouldn't chase me. He was standing in the open door frowning at me as I blasted around the corner and out of sight. Chapter 2. I found Cleo in our usual meeting place in front of Starbucks. Clouds had moved in, as they often did on May afternoons in the Colorado high country. The muted light gave her white t-shirt a bluish tint that complemented her jeans. She tucked her shoulder-length black hair behind her ears and was biting her lip. When I trotted up breathing hard, my phone chimed. I pulled it from my pocket and read Dad's text. "Sorry, son. I know you're at Starbucks. Come home, let's talk." Shoving it back in my pocket, I sat down next to Cleo. Years ago, my parents had installed an app on my phone that allowed them to find me no matter where I was, just in case I was abducted by a crazed pedophile.
"What happened, Halloran? Did you get another lecture about me?"
"Yeah, Dad pulled me aside to tell me you were totally insane, and I was crazy to believe any of your stories. And oh, by the way, for your own good, your mother and I have decided to ban Cleo from visiting here for 1 week." Cleo blinked and looked away.
"What did you say?"
"I told him I loved you." For several long moments, she stared up at the mountains with a sad expression. Finally, in a faint voice, she said,
"I love you too."
"You okay?"
I just It hurts. I know I'm not always here, but your mom really helped me.
Doesn't matter. I don't care what my parents think. Cleo clutched her canvas bag in her lap and stared at me with tormented green eyes. I could tell she was trying to work up the courage to tell me something. Her face was tense with the struggle.
Hal, I've never told you what it was like right after I came to America. I was really sick. I didn't speak for months. I ran away and hid from my aunt and uncle several times. No matter where I went, I felt the demons seeking me in my dreams. Even after the police found me and dragged me home, I stole knives from the kitchen and slept with them in my hand. It wasn't safe to be around me.
Her beautiful voice gave me a glimpse of the terrified 10-year-old child she had been, trying to hide from the demons, never able to rest, knowing no one in this world could protect her from the evil that stalked her, waking or sleeping. It brought back my own childhood fears that monsters lurked under my bed or were hiding in the back of my closet. The difference was that Cleo had stood face to face with her monsters. They'd killed her parents. But you're well now, Cleo.
I think I'm well, but maybe not. Maybe you shouldn't be around me. I could be danger.
Honestly, I don't think it's about you, Cleo, I said soothingly. I think it's actually about me. They want me to be normal, whatever that is. Dad said the problem is that you feed my obsession with the ancient world. Instead of studying Greek and Latin, they want me to go to movies, date other girls, and try out for the football team. God forbid, I groaned. When it comes to me, I think my parents want 2 and 2 not to equal 4. Cleo gently touched my cheek and smiled up at me with all the love in the world in her eyes.
I've prayed that before, haven't you?
That made me smile. Often. She held her canvas bag tightly for a moment. Then she unzipped it. For a while, though, she just sat there.
I have a favor to ask. I should have asked earlier, but your father interrupted before I'd actually decided.
She paused. Anything. You know that. Glancing down the street at the tourists dragging children by the hands, she halfway pulled a golden medallion from her bag, just enough that I could really see it. About the size of my palm, it had a hole in the top, as though it had been worn as a stunning pendant. The gold was crusted with what appeared to be rubies, sapphires, and emeralds. Greek letters encircled the rim of the medallion. My God, that looks real. Where did you get it? Is that something your uncle found on an excavation? I reached for it, but she carefully hid it in her bag again.
My father found it in the desert near Port Said, Egypt. He gave it to me just before the rebellion. He said the medallion had belonged to me in 30 BC.
In the desert? You mean on an archaeological excavation? Cleo nodded.
At the site of Per Amun. I'm not exactly sure where in the ruins he found it. I think he was afraid to tell me. All I know for certain is that he dug it up along the Great Horus Road, which runs through the site.
But I thought Per Amun was gone, erased by the sands of time.
Some of the ruins still exist. Today, archaeologists call the site Pelusium, but locals call it Tel El Farama.
She slipped her hand into her bag and seemed to be holding the medallion for protection.
My aunt and uncle tried to take the medallion away from me this morning.
They can't do that. Your dead father gave it to you. Why would they want to take it away? Cleo looked frightened.
They didn't know I had it until today. I've kept it hidden for years. My father told me to never show it to anyone.
Then how did your aunt and uncle find it?
I've started sleep.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?